Welcome back into Sports Memo's College Football Every Game on the Board podcast Championship Saturday edition with Mid-Major Matt, our next guest up. Mid-Major Matt, welcome in. How are you?
Crazy that we are here at the end of the regular season with these conference championships and then the bowl games. And then, unfortunately, the sport we love disappears.
You are right, and it becomes a different season in bowl season. I know you'll be heavily involved, so interested in your opinion going forward on the podcast. But for this episode, man, going to get after it here, starting off with the MAC championship game. We got Miami of Ohio, Central Michigan with the Chippewas laying 7. I believe they're at home, Matt. I'm not 100% sure, but 54 being the total. We got Miami of Ohio versus Central Michigan. How you looking to bet it, man?
I don't know how good this Miami of Ohio team really is. You know, the Gabbert kid looks like he's going to play. He missed the second half of last week's game against Ball State, and you could tell they played well in the first half, and then all of a sudden the bottom fell out. And I was on Ball State last week because I figured, look, Miami of Ohio had nothing to play for here. They locked up the MAC East and basically had nothing to play for. And then you look on the other side, Central Michigan. I mean, they've got such a good offense, and they could beat you with the Ward kid at running back. They could beat you with the Pimpleton kid at wide receiver. A couple of injuries to note. Senior offensive guard was lost for the season due to a broken arm last game. They also have a big question mark when it comes to Darius Bracey, who's missed a couple games at cornerback. I think Central Michigan's the better team here. Miami, Ohio, I feel like has been doing it with smoke and mirrors so far this season. And a game like this, I feel like Central Michigan just kind of exposes them a little bit and gets the victory.
And Matt, it's actually at Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. I was wrong there. So it will be controlled atmosphere. Weather won't be an issue up there in this time of year. But yeah, Miami of Ohio, 7-5 straight up versus Central Michigan, 8-4. But even more impressive, this Chippewas team, Matt, 9-2 ATS this year. They've been making a lot of money for their backers. And you're looking here saying this line -7. A touchdown favorite, neutral site. It's just too short, huh?
I think it is kind of short. Here's the thing I also like to do, or I would consider, since you say it's around 7, this is a perfect tease piece to throw in with a couple of other things. If you like other things, you take that 6-point teaser, tease it down to 1, and then you're essentially asking the better team to just win the game outright. You could throw the Central Michigan money line in to a money line parlay if there's a couple of other teams that we talk about that you like to have short numbers. So there's some things you can do with Central Michigan if you don't necessarily like the 7 there.
Good point there, Matt. We got Louisiana Lafayette, App State up next. Rotation number 107, 108, 12 noon Eastern kick here. This one is in Boone, North Carolina, which is the home of the App State Mountaineers. The -6 home favorites here. There is a 6 in the hook out there as well. 56 the total. Of course, this is a rematch of an early regular season game. I believe it was a weeknight game on ESPN. I know it was broadcast anyway on national TV. But either way, Matt, throw it over to you. We got App State -6.5 at home. Total of 56 here.
Yeah, App State won 17-7. It was back on October 9th. It was 7-7 at halftime. The total was 69, so of course we fell well short of that one. I don't remember if there was any weather in this one, but then again, it was in Louisiana, so therefore I don't expect there to have been, and it was a Wednesday night, by the way, so you are correct that it was a weeknight. A couple of injuries to note here. Louisiana Lafayette senior inside linebacker Farad Gardner is expected to play. They've allowed just 17.2 points per game, tied for 11th in the country, and Gardner's kind of a big piece to this defense. Wide receiver Jamal Bell and offensive tackle Robert Hunt are doubtful, but they are expected to get some other defensive pieces back as well, safety Percy Butler and defensive tackle Zion Hill. Look, they have decided they're going to leave a little early. I was reading about how they're changing up their plans here because there could be a chance for some wet weather. It's going to be cold in Boone, North Carolina on Saturday. On the App State side, look, I feel like this is still an offense that's trying to replace Corey Sutton. They lose the kid at wide receiver. And they've still put up some big-time numbers, but the passing game just hasn't been the same. Running back Dietrich Harrington will be fine for this one. They're not sure about tight end Colin Reed or safety Ryan Huff for this one. App State's the better team. But I really like what I see from Louisiana Lafayette because they can run the ball. And when you run the ball against a defense like this, you're able to shorten the game a little bit and keep things interesting. I don't know if I necessarily love it at 6 because it's a key number, but it's not 7. I think Lafayette's the other thing to consider here is there's a lot of reports that their coach, Billy Napier, is going to leave at the end of the year, whether it's a coordinator position, whether it's a head coaching job someplace else. Quietly behind the scenes, the administration is starting to look for new coaches. If the players start to get a sense of this, do they play up a little bit more? Are they extra motivated to win this one for their head coach? I think Louisiana Lafayette's a pretty good team in this one. They could be a very live underdog against App State.
Yeah, Matt, good breakdown, man. And you talk about Billy Napier. I haven't heard that he's necessarily going to leave, but he is an offensive mind. Going against Drinkowitz, an offensive mind as well. It is in Boone, North Carolina. This time of year, you always got to watch out with weather. But from everything I'm seeing, yes, it will be cold, but not much wind. And depending where you want to go from, the percent of rain isn't too high. You did mention the first game, the total was up near 70. This game, we're seeing it, in the mid-50s now? Granted, the first game was only 17-7, but that is a pretty hefty shift, near 2 touchdowns towards the under, a shorter total here. Would you look to buck that and go towards the over? Or if you had to bet this total, would you bet it over or under the 55?
I would think the more actually to lean to the under. Now, that's a very dangerous proposition because if you look, App State scored 48, 35, and 56 their last 3 games. And if you look at Lafayette, they've scored 31, 53, and 37 their last 3 games. But I think both defenses are pretty good. I think Lafayette's going to want to run the ball, grind things out a little bit. I think App State's going to continue to try to run the ball and mix in a little Zach Thomas as well. I would lean to the under, but once again, it's probably not going to be a play of mine because it's very dangerous because these are 2 offenses that could go crazy. But I just think that, these defenses are really good, and we could see in our defensive struggle like we did way back in October.
All right, Matt. Yeah, I kind of like the over, but always interested in your opinion there. I don't not only like the over, I did bet the over. So hopefully we get points in bunches. We have seen that App State defense, they have gotten better, but they have been a little leaky at times. But they did play well against Louisiana Lafayette the first time around. So hopefully a lot of points, but we will see for the Fun Belt Championship. We got next game up here heading to Conference USA, Matt. We got UAB at FAU, this one in Boca Raton. Matt, I've seen these 2 teams play a lot this year. One, start off here with the Blazers. It matters if Johnson's playing quarterback. He's pretty good. I think that their offense is a lot different with him in and with him not in. Also, FAU is the more talented team, top to bottom. In my opinion, they have the stronger roster, faster, bigger, stronger, more playmakers. But Lane Kiffin might be out the door, depending what rumors you want to go off of. He might be leaving South Florida. Plus the fact with the Owls, you're having to lay 7 in the hook. They are at home. We're seeing a total of 50. What are you thinking here with the Blazers and Owls?
Well, you talk about the quarterback situation for the Blazers. The Hopkins kid has done what he could. I mean, that's pretty much all we can really say here. Last game, he left twice due to 2 different injuries. He's made his 4th start of the season, so it's not like he is a slouch in terms of he's not coming in and just learning a new offense. He's done this so far. You look at the point totals, they're not great. I mean, they scored 2 points against Southern Miss, about a month ago. And so, there's some things to like about UAB. We talked about Bill Clark. We've talked about him on this podcast before, how great of a job he's done in terms of coaching. I mean, he's a guy that should go somewhere else potentially. But then again, maybe he just loves UAB and just doesn't want to go anywhere else and just wants to be stuck because he's going to be their coach for as long as he wants to, considering where he's brought them out of. You mentioned Lane Kiffin. The Lane Kiffin to Arkansas stuff is out there. And usually when there's smoke, there's fire. But then again, we saw there was the smoke that said that Clay Helton was going to get fired. And, of course, he's coming back. So we can't always believe that. A couple things with FAU. Their kicking situation isn't great. Vlade Rivas last game missed 2 field goals. And after his second field goal, he limped off the field. They've got a backup named Aaron Shahari. So if there's a close game, do you wonder about their kicking game? Also, the running back situation. B.J. Emmons in the backfield. We saw today Larry McAmmon, who has not played for quite a while, actually got a practice in today. Now, we don't know how much he did. We don't know how intense it was, but that's something to consider here. Lane Kiffin would like to run it up however much he can when he gets the chance to. This is probably not going to be on my card. It's kind of an ugly game if you look at these 2 because Florida Atlantic, as you said, is the better team here. But UAB is the spunky team, and sometimes the David beats the Goliath in this type of situation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I didn't mean to phrase it like, oh man, there's no way UAB can win. Absolutely, they can. And you bring up the fact that Bill Clark, good coach. I mean, X's and O's wise, I know Lane Kiffin, has had his moments offensively and still does, but Bill Clark's a great on the field coach, Matt.
Yeah, and those guys love him. The program loves him. There's a lot of respect across the country for him. I think he's a very good coach. As long as it's above 7, you could consider UAB if you think it's going to be a tight game. But if you think the athletes, Robeson wasn't very good last week for Florida Atlantic if you look at his statistics. So he's going to have to bounce back, and Harrison Bryant's going to have a big game because he's setting all sorts of FAU records. They're the better team. At above 7.5, maybe I consider UAB because they can be spunky, but probably not my card for this one.
Yeah, I'm breaking down the schedules here. FAU, they did miss Louisiana Tech because I always like to kind of go off of how these two teams performed against the other really good teams. Southern Miss was also banged up towards the end, so I don't want to go too much off of that. But I guess, UAB did beat Louisiana Tech 20-14. I believe that was without their quarterback, though. Not really sure on that. But either way, let's move on to AAC matchup here, Matt. We got Cincinnati at Memphis. We're seeing Memphis minus 9.5, 57.5 the total here, Matt.
So the fascinating thing here, and definitely want your opinion on this is a rematch. These two teams played last week, 34-24. Memphis won at home. The biggest thing was Desmond Ritter didn't play, or he didn't play very much, and certainly that's a big thing. And he's not going to be 100%, but he's going to play for this one. He's going to start for Cincinnati. They had a bunch of turnovers, and who knows how much each of them showed each other. I would have thought that some of those teams would have sat some of their starters. Didn't appear that they did. Look, they're also playing for the Group of 5 bid potentially in the New Year's Bowl. Like this game, the winner of this game, unless App State does something tremendous or Boise State, the winner of this game is probably going to represent the Group of 5 in the New Year's Bowl. So there's a lot at stake in this one. I don't know if I like how much, when these two teams played back-to-back, 34-24 last week, there's the change at Cincinnati at personnel. It's so many factors to consider because I think that both teams held some stuff back, and yet they still scored 58 points last week when they played each other.
Yeah, Memphis is really good, Matt. I mean, Cincinnati, offensively, they struggled at times. Their defense is good. I like what Luke Fickell has done. But plus the fact you got to bring in kind of like the Lane Kiffin situation there with FAU. There's rumors about Norvell leaving Memphis. I don't know how true those are, and why teams would be more after Norvell than they are Fickell. I guess Fickell's an Ohio guy and would more likely stay in Cincinnati. I don't really know Norvell's background, but have you heard anything with him leaving Memphis?
I've seen the same things you have, that he's a candidate. And look, Cincinnati, the thing that stresses me is they nearly lost. They only won 20-17 at USF. They only won 46-43 at East Carolina. They probably should have lost to Temple in that game a couple of weeks ago. Like, this is a team that's teetering on the edge. Their offense outside of Warren isn't great. Their defense does just enough. Based on talent alone, I like Memphis, but Memphis's defense isn't great either. So, I think you could lean to the over here. But then again, you're asking for Cincinnati to contribute in this one. They contributed 24 points last week, but did Memphis give their best effort?
Matt, next game up, heading to the Mountain West. We got a good one here. This is one I'm excited to watch. Hawaii at Boise State. We're seeing the Broncos minus 13.5 in Albertson Stadium, 64.5 the total, Matt.
These two teams played on October 12th. Boise won 59-37. The Broncos racked up 500 yards, over 500 yards, forced 4 turnovers. The funny thing from that game, if you go back and look at what Hawaii did, JoJo Ward had 0 catches. Their leading receiver in that game was Malquise Stovall, who's no longer on the team anymore. The funny thing about a championship game like this, normally there's a lot of stabilization, but I'm asking who the quarterback is for both these games. Is it McDonald? Is it the Cordero kid? We've seen both of them play. We've seen one play. We've seen them go yo-yo in and out after interception. So, McDonald clearly had all the publicity before the season, but he's had an interception issue. And then Cordero comes in, and he's a different type quarterback. And then on the Boise State side, you've got Jalen Henderson, who's the third stringer. He provides a little bit more mobility than the other quarterbacks do, but he's also the third stringer. Is Bachmeier hurt more than we thought? Is Cord in the mix? There's a lot of question marks between these two quarterbacks. Boise State, once again, is in this situation where they're going to have to run the score up if they hope to get a chance for the Group of 5 bid. I've never been a huge fan of Hawaii away from the islands. Plus, there's all these rumors going around that it could be Hawaii, BYU in the Hawaii Bowl. And I have a feeling, look, they would love to go to the Mountain West Championship. They'd love to win the Mountain West Championship. But when you have BYU, one of your hated rivals, coming up next in a bowl game, You may have one eye on it. Of course, I thought they'd have one eye on this game, but they crushed Army last week. So a lot to consider here. Long and short of it is I lean Boise State here at home. I think they're a really good team. I know they've had their struggles covering some big numbers at home in the past, but this is a different type game. And I think Jalen Henderson, if he starts, is going to put forth a good performance in this one.
Yeah, make sure to watch the weather as well, because the weather is definitely going to affect this Hawaii offense if it's bad. And Matt and I are talking right now on late on Wednesday night, so weather can always change here in college football. That one in Boise, Idaho. Matt, I think that does it in terms of all the group of 5 games. If not, feel free to throw out a game that I missed, but did want to get your opinion here on the FCS matchups, Matt. Which game did you want to start off with first?
Well, first off, let's go real quick to the UVA Clemson game, just because UVA is in my neck of the woods, and that's a team I'm very familiar with. Just want to give some thoughts. I know I know you probably did it with one of the other podcasters, but UVA being the 4-touchdown underdog in this one, I think I kind of have a vision on how this game's going to go. UVA coming off the huge win over their rival Virginia Tech. The offense looked great. The defense looked highly susceptible. Their secondary is ravaged by injuries right now, but Bryce Perkins is playing like what they expected from Bryce Perkins. The secondary issues are going to get exploited by Clemson. Clemson's going to throw the ball more than Virginia Tech did, and they're going to have more success with Ross and Higgins. But will Virginia be focused for this one? I go back to a couple of years ago when they made their first bowl game under Bronco Mendenhall. They played Navy. Well, when you have a lot of time to prepare for Navy, as you do during a bowl season, you have a month to prepare usually, you play better than UVA did. They got crushed. They weren't focused. They even admitted so afterwards. They were so fat and happy after making the bowl game that they just didn't put enough preparation into it. Fast forward a couple of years now, and you see this game against Clemson. Virginia's the best offense Clemson's faced this season. I'm ready to say that. Louisville and Texas A&M are probably close 2 and 3. I think my plays for this one, I think I'm looking at Clemson in the first quarter. They punch UVA in the mouth, who are not focused and ready. I think I like UVA plus 28 points because, as I said, I think they're going to put up some points, and I think the over's in play here. I know how good Clemson is, and I know Dabo's playing the, hey, nobody respects this card. But, I could see this being a 42-24, 42-27 type game. UVA covers the number. It goes over the total, and Clemson gets the early lead in this one.
Nice breakdown there, Matt. And Matt, you're there in Richmond, Virginia. And how can people listen to your show that you do there for ESPN?
ESPN Richmond is the station, ESPNRichmond.com. I'm on from 3 to 4 Eastern time. We do a lot of Virginia stuff and anything college basketball related with regards to the Virginia schools. We talk a lot of Tech, UVA, Richmond, VCU, ODU, JMU, all those teams. So 3 to 4 Eastern time on ESPN Richmond Monday through Friday as we do a lot of college and pro sports here.
So if you're in the Richmond, Virginia area, give them a listen. And also we have a special coupon code for this podcast. His 7-day all-access pass at sportsmemo.com for $50 off using the coupon code MMM69 at checkout. You can get his week package there, 7-day all-access for less than $10 a day using the coupon code MMM69 at checkout. He's been hot in the NFL, also knows his college basketball as well as obviously his college football. So, Matt, what are you thinking here for the FCS slate? Did you want to throw any games out or just kind of betting tips for the audience?
So we're going to do some tips and some games I'm looking at. Here's the thing before we get into that real quick. The lines are only out in a couple books. There's only one major book that has it right now, and some other ones may have it depending upon where you are. When we talk about these numbers, on Saturday morning when everybody starts releasing them, they're going to move. So if you like something right now, you can either take it right now or you can hope that Saturday somebody bets against you. The number moves a lot because you could see 6-7 point movements on the spreads and the totals and stuff like that. So, look at it now. Maybe put it on your watch list for Saturday morning. Maybe you get some more value. The problem is you may also lose some value. So it's kind of something. I've done this for a while, and I still can't figure out where the leans are and everything. So sometimes I get my value on Saturday mornings. Sometimes I do not. The first game I want to touch on real quick, JMU and Monmouth. I'm looking at the over here. JMU, the 2 seed in the playoffs. They've had 2 bye weeks the last month, so they're as fresh as could be. They really have had no injuries. They're explosive. At home, they've put up 48, 54, 27, 38, 63, and 44. They play with some pace. They love to run it. They love to pass. The defense has been very good, 3rd best in the country overall. So you know what you could kind of expect from this James Madison team. It doesn't look like weather's going to be an issue on Saturday. Monmouth is a very nice Cinderella story. I actually heard the JMU football coach was on our station earlier today. He talked about how they've really been preparing for Monmouth because they expected Monmouth to beat Holy Cross, beat them 44-27. They've scored 40 or more points 7 times this season. They've got this kid Guerrero, who's the rushing leader. He's run for over 200 yards in 3 straight games. I think they struggle a bit against JMU, but Kennesaw State's the 4th-ranked defense in the country. Monmouth did score 45 points. This feels like one of those situations where they're going to empty out the playbook. You're going to see the reverses, all sorts of things because they know they're not going to win. JMU's around a 4-touchdown favorite in this one. I think the over's worth a look here. I think JMU's offense can do a lot of the heavy lifting, and maybe Monmouth gets through that back door. You get a couple touchdowns late when they're maybe not as focused, maybe like a 52-14 type game. But I think JMU, if you can get futures odds and you can get JMU at anything better than even 2-1 to win this championship, it looks like it's going to be North Dakota State JMU in the championship game. And then you're just basically asking the Dukes to win a game they've won in the past against, the national power North Dakota State. Do you want me to do one more for you?
Yeah, have at it, man. Whatever you want to throw out there. It's good info, man.
So the other one I'm looking at is Kennesaw State and Weber State. So let me tell you about both these teams. Kennesaw State runs the triple option. Always a tough thing for this time of year, but Weber State has had the extra week to prepare. Not only that, they've played Cal Poly each of the last 4 years, and Cal Poly runs the triple option. Now, granted, not as great as Kennesaw State. Over the last 4 seasons, the Wildcats have held Cal Poly to 12 points less and 128 rushing yards less than their usual averages. So they know what they're doing. Now, granted, this year they didn't do as well. I think they have 28 points, but still, the extra week to prepare for a system that they already kind of know. You look at both of these defenses. Kennesaw State has held 7 opponents under 20 points per game. They lost 26-23 to Kent State. We know Kent State's not a terrible FBS offense. Granted, they're a MAC team. They're not great, but holding them to 26 in an overtime game is not bad. Weber State wants to run the ball. They run it for their defense is really good against the run. 9th total in the league. Their defensive line is one of the best. They've held 7 opponents to 20 points or less. Kennesaw State last week had to go to their 3rd-string quarterback. He came off the bench, ran for 206 yards, and had 3 touchdowns. The Owls averaged 346.8 rushing yards per game. They don't do a lot of passing. There could be weather involved here. There could be snow. There could be cold, which I don't think is going to be great for the triple option here. The total right now is around 56. That's asking for 8 touchdowns between 2 teams who want to run the ball, 2 teams that have very good defense. It feels like an under right now. I may wait and see if I can milk a couple extra points here, maybe even up to 57. But if you want to consider it right now, the under might be worth a look there. And then finally, North Dakota State. They're a 28-point favorite against Nicholls State. North Dakota State in this game, the past couple years in round 2, when you play a team that makes the playoffs, but they're nowhere near as good, they've absolutely bludgeoned people so far. Nicholls State has a pretty good defense. They may slow down North Dakota State, but look, that place is one of the loudest places in America to play. And you look at that team, they're on a mission. They want to get to the championship game once again. They want to extend the dynasty. North Dakota State is very tough at home. I don't know if I'd consider a first-half play with them, but they should be able to dispatch Nicholls State rather easily. So that one's around 28 points. And then there's some other games as well. But, follow me on Twitter, and I can tell you some stuff about that as we continue to kind of process this, because I think I'm going to be leaning more to the FCS games than the FBS games this weekend on my card.
No, great breakdowns, Matt. That's good information, man. Weber State, so their success against the triple option in the past, we're seeing the market. It kind of opened up, and granted, this isn't going to take a lot of money to move at 9.5 to 12.5, but you do agree with that move on Weber State. I also want to ask a question in terms of just kind of talent levels here. Kennesaw State, I lived in Atlanta. They were pumping a bunch of money into that football program, and it's a pretty highly recruited area there. I'm guessing that, talent-wise, Kennesaw State's pretty good. I mean, they're finding themselves in the playoffs here versus Weber State. I mean, I'm not even exactly sure where Weber State is. Is it in Utah?
It's in Utah, yeah.
I mean, and having to lay near 2 touchdowns here. I mean, are they that good, talent-wise?
I think it's more the case of Weber State's defense is just really good. I mean, their offense has some solid pieces. I think this one is a lot about defense. I think people were impressed with Kennesaw State. They won at Wofford last week by a touchdown. Once again, now you're traveling from Wofford You're coming home, you're practicing for the week, and then you're flying all the way out to the West Coast to play Weber State. We don't know necessarily who the quarterback's going to be. That's the problem with FCS schools. You don't necessarily get as much injury information. If it's Jonathan Murphy, he's the third stringer. Tommy Bryant suffered a leg injury, so we'll see if he's available. But, when you have a triple option system, you've got a lot of guys. Look at Army when they've been shuttling guys in and out all season due to injury. So I think that, look, this is going to see not a ton of possessions. Now, look, the problem with the under here is if Kennesaw State breaks off a couple of these long runs and then Weber State starts breaking off some runs, then you're looking at an over here. But I prefer to think that Weber State, if they get Kennesaw State, they're going to make them drive 16, 17 plays because Kennesaw State just doesn't want to throw the ball. And in a cold atmosphere with a wet football potentially, if there is snow or some sort of weather like that, then the triple option might struggle a little bit.
Matt, great breakdowns, man. And just a final question here. It sounded like you like James Madison and North Dakota State, both 4 touchdown favorites this week. But you made a mention of them two maybe meeting in the championship game. 1, who do you think wins the FCS this year? And 2, if you had to throw out a team, maybe a sleeper not named James Madison or North Dakota State, would you throw a team name out there?
See, unfortunately for this type of sport, it's very hard because these two teams are just so good. Look, South Dakota State could threaten JMU, but I mean, it's going to be very hard because in the FCS playoffs, these two teams have home field advantage all the way until Frisco, Texas. So like every game is going to go through Harrisonburg and wherever, Fargo, North Dakota State. There's teams. There's some pedigrees here. South Dakota State, if they were healthy, I could throw them out there. Weber State is a team that potentially could. They're the type who may not necessarily be afraid to go to James Madison and play. If you're really looking for a sleeper, I think Weber State, but I'd more than likely just load up on whichever value is better between North Dakota State and JMU. Those two are just that much better. And by the way, the JMU one, I'm looking more towards the over. Than the actual side. I think the 3 that I have isolated right now is JMU over, which is around 64, the Kennesaw State, Weber State under around 56, and then North Dakota State minus 28. Now, that's not necessarily locked in right now. I'm going to see if I can maybe get a little bit more value, but if you want to jump in on that now, those are the numbers that I would consider.
Great stuff, as always, from Mid-Major Matt on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt. You can follow me on Twitter at Drew Martin Betts. The special coupon code, guys, and you'll get all of his college basketball plays, all of his college football plays, including the FCS games that he releases, all for under $10 a day. Using the coupon code MMM69 at checkout, you'll get a 7-day all-access package for just $69, $50 off of the retail price at sportsmemo.com. That coupon code is MMM69 at checkout. Matt, anything else you want to throw out here on the podcast before we shut this down?
No, I think ready for a championship weekend, ready for the Sweet 16 of the FCS, and next week we'll keep breaking this stuff down.
All right, Matt, real quick, who are the 4 teams that punch their ticket in the playoff, in your opinion?
I would say I'm hoping it's LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, and I'm hoping it's Utah. I think Utah will give a better show than the likes of Paul Feinbaum think. I think Utah will acquit themselves well if they win the Pac-12 championship. I don't need to see Oklahoma and that awful defense in the Final Four.
All right, Mid-Major Matt. Follow him on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Best of luck with your bets. We'll be back with the NFL Every Game on the Board podcast with Minty Bets and Teddy Covers later in the week.